Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Listing Agent Podcast. I'm your host, Keith Hernandez. I've got co-host Ben Chavarrillo, and I've got Mr. Chris Moreno. Can we all give him a round of applause? All right, Chris.
Thank you.
So I know we got a lot of good information to talk about today, especially about the market and, kind of where we're going. But first, before we get started, what is your New Year's goals this year?
So my New Year's goals revolves around a few things. So one, to remain healthy, keep moving. Fitness is huge for me now, only as of like March, April of 2023. I just started waking up literally yesterday at 3:30 a.m. So my goal is 3:30 a.m., latest 4. I don't want to give myself that 4. Continue reading. And then social media is a huge thing that I'm getting into more seriously. So those two things are going to impact me on the daily with my time, but 3:30 in the morning is the one that will affect everything in the entire day. So looking forward to that one.
What time are you going to bed?
Yeah. I used to be at 9:30 to wake up at 4. Now I pushed it to 9 p.m. to wake up at 3:30.
Wow. Major props to you. I can barely get up at 7. Nice. Cool. So Chris, I know real quick, just give us a little brief summary of what you do. Tell the audience, and then, let's hear what you have to say about the market.
Cool. So I'm the Chief Production Officer at Viewpoint Lending. Obviously, we met back in the day with the Moore Group running a mortgage team, got in the industry in about 2009, went through a lot of different changes, different companies like a lot of us do go through, then morphed into, about 2.5 years ago, morphed into Viewpoint Lending, where our motto is mortgage is done differently. Just really want to have a great place for loan officers and operational staff to want to call home. And then just to have a great, excellent experience for the consumer and always do the right thing and take care of them. So
nice. So I know the biggest question right now everyone's asking, and I know the first person they're going to ask is a lender, but what is with these interest rates? Where are we headed with this?
Yeah, so obviously the government has told us clearly it's a fact. The rates are going to come down, right? Middle to late October, they were about 1.5% higher than what you see today. So a lot of people don't realize, man, they've already come down 1.5%, and that's without the feds and the government actually dropping the interest rates formally. So the government has said, listen, 2024, we're here now. I think it's the 2nd of January here, or 3rd of January, whatever date it is. And we know they're going to drop 3, 4, 5 different times. So this year, it is going to come down probably in quarter increments, right? So today I looked at the rates today on your average conventional, right, mortgage product. You're about 6.7. So the first reduction probably by March, April, May will probably be somewhere to about 6.5, give or take. So we're going to start seeing them decrease throughout 2024. So
what do you think they would be by the end of this year?
I think by the end of 2024, based on what they're saying, and there was just an article that came out right before the new year, you're probably, if they're 6.7, probably mid to high 5s.
Okay.
I think is probably what they'll be, and maybe lower. I did a video yesterday where if it goes a lot lower, it's going to be tough for a lot of first-time buyers, but I think we're probably going to see about 0.5% at least less. So maybe 1 full point. So I think that's where it's going to be, man.
Even with the 5s, I feel like that's still a significant change to make buyers and sellers make a move.
For sure. I'm going to be shooting a video later today, as a matter of fact, where 5% is that rate where I think sellers come out to play. When they see a 5 in front of the rate, and then as it gets closer to low 5s, sellers come out to play. And the reason why I say that is because thousands and thousands of people have rates in the 2s and 3s. No one's going to sell their home and say, I'm going to sell my current mortgage and home that they're not in love with anymore at a 2 or 3% rate and go up to 6, 7, 8. Not going to do it. But it's easier to digest to say, I'm going to sell my home with a 2 or 3% rate and jump into a 5. So there's going to be a lot of money, I believe, in the form of down payment and net proceeds that come into the market as these rates get closer to low 5s. But I think we'll start seeing a change because at 6, 7, we only need 3/4 of a point before there's a 5 in front of it. Yeah.
Do you think we'll ever see those 3s again?
Possibly 2025, 2026, depending, right? A lot of people are saying, they're hoping the market crashes. I don't think it crashes. If the market keeps increasing, the rate can't stay at 6, 7, right? That's healthy, they say, but it might. But I don't think it'll go quick like it did in COVID 2020. That's where it just drops significantly, right? But I think possibly. And if it does, man, everybody better expect for the demand to increase, sellers, and it's just, I think it's going to be a buying frenzy again. So it's not really what everybody would probably want, even though they think that.
And just to give you a quick shout out, because I know you post a lot of great stuff on Instagram. Share with everyone, what's your Instagram?
Doctor, D-O-C-T-O-R. I am not a doctor. People always ask. I didn't even think that. Like, I wasn't trying to portray to be a doctor, but Doctor, D-O-C-T-O-R, .mortgage Moreno.
Again, if anyone follow Mr. Dr. Mortgage here, he gives out great information for sure and keeps us informed.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think so. Going back to, you know, I know before the interest rates were, you know, those lowers before they shot up, but the market was so competitive. What were some of the hardest things for a first-time buyer to get into a house when it wasn't competitive, when the lower interest rates were in place?
So when those rates were really low, it was really hard for the first-time buyer, meaning 3.5 to like 10% down, because a lot of first-time buyers can get to that 10% down mark. It was hard for them to compete with the people that had deeper pockets. When it was extremely competitive, right? They had to come over the appraised value. They had to bridge the gap. If a home was selling for $500,000 and there was 10, 15 offers and it got up to $550,000, the FHA 3.5% buyer or 5% down conventional buyer, if they didn't have the money to say, I'm gonna offer $550,000, and if it comes in at $520,000, I don't have the money to bridge the gap, is what we call it, then that was the biggest struggle, is trying to compete with appraisals and the high demand. So if that comes back this year, man, even though first-time buyers want these rates to go down, if they come down too much, it's going to be the same or similar market, and it's going to be unfortunate for people that don't have big, giant down payments.
Yeah.
So would you recommend a buyer should buy right now?
I do. Right now, incentives are going to go away, right? They're starting to slowly go away. We're asking for closing costs. You know, I have a client that was buying in, I don't know if it was Compton or LA, greater LA, right? Property was listed at $550,000. They came in at $600,000. They initially wanted to ask for closing costs. They didn't get the accepted offer, nor were they even thinking of going to be able to get closing costs. So the incentives are slowly starting to go away. First-time buyers need to be reasonable with these properties, right? If they find a property that's on the market for 30 plus days, negotiate. But if you find a property that just hit the market in the last 7 days, like, you don't have any buying power. Like, not buying power, but you don't have, you know, the leverage to ask for something. So be negotiable with the condition of the home or the area. Like, just get into your starter home.
Yeah.
When we all got cars, my starter car was not the car I wanted.
Right.
You get your car that's going to leverage you into the next item. So I think so for sure, but buy before the incentives totally go away. Because right now, first-time buyers have a shot. Down payment assistance buyers are still getting accepted offers, but that's going to shift one day, whether it's 2024 or maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's 2025, but you got to get in now, because the sooner you get into real estate, you know, your family has properties. The sooner you get into real estate, wealth is built, and then the market just makes you money.
Yeah,
for sure.
I love how you mentioned go for the properties that are 30 days plus, because you're right. First-time buyers, they just want to go straight for that house that just hit the market 3 days.
Yeah.
Well, it's all for $50,000 below. I'm like, okay, come on, guys.
Right.
But no, that's a great point. But yeah, no, definitely. I like the whole concept. Can you explain the concept of, you know, buying at a high interest rate, refinancing later? Have you heard the term? What is that term? You date the rate, marry the property.
Yes.
Can you explain that process a little bit?
Yeah. So a lot of people get so consumed with this rate, but as we know, the rate is temporary. No matter if rates are in the twos, right? That's going to be temporary if you ever wanted to pull money out, or maybe it's permanent because you'll never refi in your 30-year mortgage. Chances are you're going to refi. Most people refi for one reason or another. So the rate's temporary. People get so consumed with these rates at 6, 7, 8% when we saw it in October. If you can qualify, the question is, if you qualify and it's in the budget, buy the home.
Yeah.
If the mortgage payment is not stretching you, or going to lose something or can't afford the car, buy the home, because we know now for a fact 2024 rates are coming down. You're going to refi. Now, FHA clients, the cool thing, you get a high rate after 210 days, you can do a streamline. You don't need to requalify for the home. Nice. You don't need pay stubs. Yeah. You don't need an appraisal. Wow. It's essentially an interest rate reduction loan. As long as 210 days have passed since you bought it, FHA, if your rate's about 0.5% higher than current market, you're going to be able to do that interest rate reduction, and you're not going to roll all your traditional closing costs in like those other refinances we all know about. So that's a benefit.
Nice.
Value goes up or down, you still can do a streamline into fair market rates. Okay, that's a streamline. The conventional one, you want to see about a 1% reduction. So everybody that's buying right now, what I say, the rates are 6.7. Once they go down to about 5.7, that's where people are like, you know what? I'm going to refi. Right. So if someone bought today, January 2024, I'd say maybe by the end of the year, beginning of 2025, is probably where they're thinking about refinancing. Now you got to think differently with that type of refi, not the FHA. FHA is different. Conventional, you want to see that 1% rate reduction. Most importantly, because you're going to roll about $10,000, $12,000 into your loan if you don't pay for it out of pocket for closing costs. Right. So those refis will be coming down the pipeline.
So someone who bought, let's just say in March of 2022, that was a year ago, they can still streamline technically. And you would recommend that rather than doing a full refi then?
Correct. If they're in an FHA mortgage and their rate, let's just call it, is 6.5, 6.7 and above, as long as 6 payments or so, 210 days has passed, give or take, then inquire about a refinance because you can do that FHA streamline. Now, a lot of people are like, they shouldn't be staying in FHA. Well, if you qualify and your credit hasn't gone down and you're in a position to get into a conventional loan, by all means do it. But if you're at a 6.75 FHA with lower mortgage insurance and the rate right now is 6.7 conventional, not a huge benefit, right? Take your savings and stay in the FHA mortgage. I did a video with it. It was like, oh, the closing costs are going to get rolled in, but the borrowers want to save money, right? I'm not saying keep doing it and keep every 2-3 years get into a 30 year and a 30 year and a 30 year. You can do it with a 27 year if you got 3 years into it. So there's creative ways. If you're in FHA, do the FHA streamline, 6.5, 6.7 and above. You can start doing it now. So people that bought in probably August, September, October, they're probably going to be able to refi in the next 3 to 4 months.
Oh, nice. Okay.
FHA.
Gotcha. Okay. And credit is a whole nother topic, which we're going to get into in a little bit. But I know there's also products out there that, are beneficial to buyers. I think first in conventional, but for example, like a 2-1 buy down, can you explain that a little bit? And do you think that's beneficial right now for?
I definitely think it's beneficial. You got to outweigh the numbers, right? Because typically on a 2-1 buy down, $600,000 home, you're going to need about $12,000, give or take, to get the 2-1 buy down. And remember, when you ask for money from the seller on a 2-1 buy down, that is not covering closing cost. Okay. People get that mistaken. Oh, I have to buy the home. It's $40,000. I got $12,000 credit for closing costs. No. It's only getting to the 2-1 buy down. How the 2-1 buy down works. Let's just say the rate today is 6% on an FHA loan. Now the 2-1 buy down, your mortgage payment is still based at 6%. Your loan docs still say 6%.
Okay.
But your mortgage payment that you're paying to the bank every month is at a 2% lower rate for the first year. So you're making a mortgage payment at 4%. Okay. Now remember, your real rate on paper is still 6. So that credit from the seller gets put into, let's just call it a savings account. You make a mortgage payment that's less than what you really should be making. They pull it from that account, paying the difference in what the real payment should be. Okay. 1 year passes. Now you're making a mortgage payment at 5%. Okay. Now you're on the second year. Now there's a difference in payment from what your real payment should be. And then the payment that you're paying keeps pulling from that savings account. After that second year, your rate goes up to 6. So a lot of times buyers weren't getting explained that. Hopefully they understand that if they don't refinance, their rate's going to go up to fair market and their payment's going to go up one day. So hopefully that doesn't get people into trouble. But as long as people understand it, I think it's a great strategy. Now with rates coming down, people need to understand, should I take that $12,000 to get the 2% lower in payment? Because that's a nice payment, temporary. Or do I say, put $12,000 literally in my pocket because now I don't have to spend my own $12,000 to pay for closing costs. So you want to outweigh those numbers. But like I mentioned early on, the 2-1 buy down type and assistance from sellers is slowly going away. So 3, 4, 5 months ago, a lot of people were getting the 1-1 buy down, 2-1 buy down. Now we're not seeing a lot of those, as many as we were. So it's already starting to slow down in regards to those type of incentives.
Interesting.
Yeah, I do recall last year we were able to get our entire closing costs covered. But that's even slowly, Let's just say, is it possible to still, I know there's homes 30 days plus on the market, which, buyers should be hitting. Is it still possible? Do you think that you've been seen to get full closing costs and a buy down covered?
I haven't seen it in quite some time, but I think if you see those properties that are on the market 30 days plus, definitely you'll be able to do it. Now you might not be able to do it right off the bat, right? If it's listed at 600,000 and it's been on the market for 30 days, you're not going to get 600,000, cover 3% of my closing costs plus another 2, that's $30,000. You might need to say, okay, it's listed for 6, I'll offer 610, give me $30,000, and that's really digging into the pocket, only 20 G's for the seller. So you still got to structure it, but it is possible right now, but just not as common. Yeah, you got to have a good agent, and a lot of times, your realtors are always strategizing. I see your guys meeting on social media, staying on top of the trends, staying on top of scripts, right? Collaborating. A lot of people know you guys in the local area and beyond. So that's going to be extremely important when you're negotiating. People think real estate's easy. It's not. Like, you need to have a great agent, because your part-time auntie that does real estate ain't going to get you the 30 G's. But a full-time realtor who is a practitioner at the industry is going to be more likely to get a credit for closing costs.
Call me Dr. Realtor. Great. Awesome. I did see that you kind of posted one time about a first-time buyer buying it's a multifamily versus a single family. Do you think can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So I suggested if we can. Now, sometimes it's hard to find a multifamily property, 2, 3, or 4 unit. That's what I call multifamily. It's hard to find that in certain areas. But I would be extremely flexible if I'm a first-time buyer. If I got 20, 30 G's, I'm going to move wherever I need to. I'm going to do whatever I need to get multifamily. One of the reasons is, number one, FHA allows over $1 million, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 even, I believe, depending on how many units. You literally can put 3.5% down on multifamily, right? Now, the reason why I suggest it first off is on your first purchase, if you buy multifamily, super easy. Now, if you go buy the single family first, because it's like, I don't want to live in units, like sacrifice a little bit. But if you don't want to sacrifice, you're like, I've got to have the single family now. You want to buy doors later, because I think the average American and consumer should want to buy as many doors as possible. Like, Social Security is going to go away one day probably. Retirement isn't what it used to be, right? Not a lot of people are in unions anymore. So real estate's going to be people's retirement. So if you're buying a single family and then you go buy units later, you got to put 20, 25% down. We all know that's super hard to come up with 20, 25% down. Buy your units first, 3.5%, live in it for a year, buy your next one at 5% down conventional. And now the 2, 3, or 4 units, if you prepare your taxes correctly, is going to help you qualify for more on that single family home. So I'm a firm believer, the more doors, the better. And why not buy more than one door on your first purchase? It just takes flexibility.
And VA is the same, correct?
VA is the same. It's actually 0 down and there's no loan limits. So great options. Yeah, so it's more flexible than FHA.
So you're saying if I had a VA, you're saying I can buy a 4-plex up to $2 million with
long as
0
you qualify.
down?
Yeah, as long as you qualify.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah, it's a great product. And there's so many opportunities out there, but people are like, it's the whole, I want to have everything now. Wait at least 12 months to get the single family. Like, because if you qualify for 500,000, that's hard to find locally. Go up to 700,000. Go buy multifamily, right? Or I just did a video on the way here. If you have $20,000 and your family has 20, but it's like, dude, we're not going to find anything local for 500. Sacrifice for 12 months, bring your 20 and 20 together and go buy multifamily, and then you guys sell that later or leverage that into something else. If I can buy 4 doors, but with another person, now I own 2, they own 2. Like, start collaborating, because affordability is a huge issue. And I don't like how it's either buy or don't buy. There's other options.
For
Collaborate.
Sure.
Get with people. Buy out of state. You know what I mean?
Have you ever done out of state?
No, I've never purchased out of state. I have clients that buy out of state. I have one of my clients that I think I've mentioned him before. He's buying what feels sometimes like out of state in Bakersfield, right? It feels like a different area. And his strategy is very, very to the T. He knows his price. He knows he only wants 4 units. So I'm definitely, my eyes have been open the last 24 to 36 months as to buying out of state. Just because, if you have $10,000, $20,000, you'll qualify here in Southern California, but you're probably not gonna be able to find something, right? So put that $10,000 or $20,000 into real estate in another state. And there's a lot of strategies behind it, and there's a lot of people doing it. In similar states too.
And going back to the point where you're absolutely right. People, they want it now and they want it in the area they want it, When in reality, you've got to think more long term rather than right now.
Right.
For sure. Wow. So do you think there's going to be with the interest rates going down to a seller, it's like, do you think there's going to be a refi boom, or do you think there's going to be more sellers putting their house on the market?
I think as we see those rates coming down into the 5s, like I mentioned, we see more sellers flood the market. Obviously, as rates come down to the 5, more buyers flood the market because now more can afford it because affordability is huge. So once there's 5s, more sellers come, more buyers come. I think it's not going to be like what everybody thinks it is. So more sellers come and they're making a lot of money. Like in the last 3 years, remember 2023, going on 4 years ago, rates were in the 2s and 3s. Think of how much appreciation there is from someone that bought in 2020. So you have someone selling at 2% rate, making 200 G's, right? And then competing with someone that has $20,000. Like that's going to be super tough for first-time buyers. So it's going to happen, and it's probably going to happen this year.
Wow. Well, I'm pretty intrigued to see where we're going to head with this for sure.
Yeah.
So what other tips can you give for, buyers in general? You also did mention that the more down payment for a buyer is going to get a higher interest rate.
Yeah. So I believe it was in May 2023. I got some hate on a video, right? But it was the facts. Like people were like, stop spreading the lies.
Haters are going to hate. Don't worry.
Right. I was all right with it. Some of it's funny. I actually commented back to some people. It was just clever and funny. But if you look at what we call LLPAs, loan level price adjusters on conventional loans, we all know that depending on credit score and down payment, conventional rates fluctuate, right? So if you have a buyer that's putting 5% down flat, straight up 5%, and you have a buyer that's putting 20% down flat, nothing more, the buyer with 5% actually gets a lower rate or what we call lower rate adjuster. Their rate is adjusted less. The 20% buyer has a higher rate adjuster, meaning their rate could be the same as the other buyer, but it's going to cost them more. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but the reason, you guys had asked me, like, why would that happen? Well, the Biden administration, I said, good old Joey B did it. Okay, he didn't do it, but his administration did, right? They put this into play and said, let me help 5% down buyers, first-time buyers, right? They get less of a penalty. Cool, I love it. But why are the 20% buyers still have a bigger penalty when you have more down payments? So it doesn't make complete sense, but believe it or not, it is a fact. 5% down as opposed to 20% down buyers, owner occupied, 5% buyer gets a better rate or lower cost.
There's a lot of buyers just in general think that they need to put 20% down or think that that's more the smarter way rather than putting, starting off with 5% down. What do you think about that?
So rule of thumb, everybody says put 20% down so you have no mortgage insurance, right? Cool. I'd love to. But essentially, I'm not going to wait. I'm a firm believer in real estate. So if I can get in now, perfect. Now, when FHA changed their monthly mortgage insurance, I believe it was 2023, they changed it to be actually, in most cases, more competitive than conventional. That was just a more of an incentive to say, let me buy now as opposed to having to wait to save 20. Because think of the average consumer in American. How long is it going to take them to save 20% down? Like I would rather a while, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like I would rather
half their life maybe.
Get into a home now, and on my $20,000, like I said, I'm not just focusing on California anymore. Out of state, take your $20,000, buy somewhere else, and let the market appreciate 2 to 5% on your behalf.
Yeah.
So people do it all the time, but I think it's becoming more common that rule. People aren't listening to it as much. Obviously, in a perfect world, you want to have 800 credit score and 20% down, but there are products that make it affordable and reasonable to buy with a lot less down, and with mortgage insurance, because it's competitive now.
I guess a lot of people too have that thing where they want to just pay off their house, as soon as possible. Would you pay off your house as soon as possible, or what would you do?
I would not. So I'm a big leverage of debt in the right way, right? So I'm not a believer of wanting to pay off and have no balance on my mortgage. Like, remember, I'm trying to acquire. I'm 39 years old, going to be 40 in 2 months.
You look great, by the way.
Thank you.
I thought you were 30.
I wish.
I'm thinking you're 25, man. But
so I'm a firm believer in buy as many doors as possible. Like, the cool thing is if I buy my home for $100,000 today, and let's just say 10 years passes worth $500,000, and I cash out up to $300,000, I'm not getting taxed yet. I haven't sold the property. So I can pull money out tax-free, go buy more doors, right? So
say that word again, tax-free.
Tax-free.
Say it again.
Tax-free.
Okay, hopefully
right?
I got that.
So I bought for $100. It's worth $500. I do a cash out refinance and I pull out $200,000-$300,000. You're not getting taxed yet. You haven't exchanged your property. You haven't sold it. You have no net proceeds. You're just cash out refi. If you never sell it, you never pay taxes, right? So I would pull that money out, start buying more properties, right? So I'm going to leverage an asset. Now, I'm not saying to get underwater, but I'm saying to acquire things that make us money because the government ain't doing nothing for us. Everybody wants the cars, the watches, and all that. Like, what are the best watches that hold their value?
Rolex,
right? Yeah. So is it a good investment to buy a Rolex?
Arguably, maybe yes.
Compared to a Timex, right? It's going to hold its value. So I'm going to buy real estate as often as I can, and I'm going to leverage my homes to a reasonable payment and then buy the next property. So if I qualify to pull out $300,000, but my reasonable personal payment is only pulling out $100, stay at your $100. Don't over leverage. Take your $100. Oh man, I wanted to have $300 and go buy in Orange County. Okay, it doesn't work. Take your $100, go buy out of state. Up north, Bakersfield, somewhere else, but just leverage that money. Yeah. So yeah, I don't want to pay on my own.
And don't go to Vegas.
Don't go to Vegas unless you're with Keith.
Awesome. And then lastly, I want to touch on credit scores. What can you explain? What credit scores do people need to have to buy a house? Because I know there's so much confusion about that as well. Yeah.
So most banks out there are going to go down to, believe it or not, about 550 to 580 or so for an FHA first time buyer. Okay. Yeah. Now, believe it or not, it's harder to qualify at 550, 580. You're not going to be that person that I have a 550 credit, good job, but I don't have the down payment. So all the money's coming from aunt and uncle, mom or dad. Like you got to have some money and some skin in the game. So it's going to be harder at 550, 580. If you have that, you can qualify. Now there are tips, tricks I'm putting together. I just talked to our videographer and creative director. I'm going to put together a credit consultation course to help people. People don't understand credit, and it's sad. Yeah. You know, my parents never talked to me about credit. It's like it's this untold or unspoken thing that we all need in life, right? So people at 550, 580 can get to about 600. That's where the market opens up to more products and more flexibility to qualify, right? So there's a lot of things that can be done to do it. Now it's not free, right? If you have that low of a credit score, it's going to take about $1,000 to $2,000 to get you a little higher. Now it's 600 to 620. A lot more products come into play. 640, you start to get into some down payment assistance programs that are available for FHA buyers. Once you get into the 680, 700 and above, now you're talking conventional type loans. So there are a lot of options out there. It's just you have sometimes people that are unreasonable. Hey, I have a 580 credit. I'm almost there. I want minimum down and I want the payment I want. It's like you got to give and take somewhere. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
What's the time frame for someone who has low credit scores and you're trying to help them to get to a higher number? How long does that normally take? Because you got to pay a couple thousand, but what's the time frame?
So the time frame is going to count on one thing that's most important. How recent was the bad stuff? And the bad stuff to me is recent collections, or more importantly, how recent were any 30-day lates? I don't care about 29-day lates, 30-day lates. If you have 30-day lates in the last 90 days or so, it's going to take longer. Now, if you have 30-day lates in 9 to 12 months ago, we can get your scores up. Like we had a client who bought locally here in Whittier, started at a 560, 580 credit, 2 borrowers, brought on kids, but the credit did literally, they could not get what we all know as a DU approval. Within 2 weeks, 10 days or so, they went from 560 to 620.
Wow.
Or $1,750.
In 10 days.
That's amazing. 10 days.
That's amazing.
Now, they didn't have a bunch of recent lates on credit cards, but they had old collections. They had old lates for over a year. So we got it up pretty quick while in escrow. It took a 60-day escrow, which is interesting, right? 60-day escrows are going to go away too. So that client, had they waited 6 months, they wouldn't have bought. Yeah. With the flexibility of the market we were in the last 30 to 60 days, they got an accepted offer with 60-day escrow. So it really depends. If you've got old stuff that is weighing you down and giving you those scores, if it's old, you can get it up within 10 to 14 days.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Right, so those lates actually affected them even a year later?
After about 12 months on any lates on anything, 30-day lates, that's where they start to not affect you as much. But if it's in less than 12 months, those lates are really affecting your scores.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, I mean, this has been some great information, especially for, buyers out there who are just kind of running around in circles, not knowing what the market's going to go. I think this is very informative for sure.
For sure. Perfect.
Is there anything you want to wrap it up with? Do you want to share the world with, or what did you have for dinner?
No, man, if I can, I get a lot of DMs recently now that the new year's here. Should I buy? Should I put more down payment? Like, I think people should buy if it's in the budget. Like, stop overthinking it. Be open to different things and strategies. If you've got 10 grand, I'll give you an example. My parents, I'll just call them a buyer, but they're my parents, right? Mm-hmm. Got 10 G's, they can go buy something. I'll tell them, hey, listen, rent forever, mom and dad, or get a piece of the pie of the American land. Go buy a manufactured home. Mm-hmm. You should never do that. Well, every client's different. They're over 55. There's 55 and over communities. So I'm a firm believer. Buy something if you can that is not attached to a lease or rent. Because my parents can never take their lease or rental agreement and sell it to someone. You make no money. No. If I buy a manufactured home or just a mobile home, what they say is the worst investment, can I sell a mobile home down the road?
Yep.
Not going to be the best return. Maybe I bought it for 15 and sold it for 20. I made 20 grand. A lease, I make $0 every single time.
Yep.
So invest in real estate. If you can't do it solo, do it with someone else. Put together 4 or 5 people that have 5 or 10 grand. Like, get into real estate because you don't want to be left behind. Buy out of state. Like, just have a strategy. Talk to your professional.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, guys, let's give him a round of applause. Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for watching. Today we had some great information. For more information, tune in next week. Check out our new podcast. Thank you guys.